It's time we give back. Sow a seed and show someone where love's at. Even if you don't give a dime, give your heart and share your time. Help somebody else in life. Give back. Let's give back.
Welcome to this episode of Ignite, Empower, Transform. I am your host, Hosea James Givan II, and this is our very first show of 2022. Today we have three amazing guests touching on some really important topics facing the Black community, and we touch on a little sports. Let's get right to it. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Ignite, Empower, Transform. I'd like to introduce my guests. First, we have Mr. Benjamin Hanley. Benny is I call him Benny, a longtime friend, is the principal at the BSH Group, also known as BISH, based in New York City. We also have Mr. John Burnett. John, let me get your title right, brother, is the managing director and founder of One Empire Group, NYU adjunct professor as well. And finally, we have Mr. Ron Powers. Ron is Diversity and Inclusion Officer at the Metropolitan Hospital Center. Welcome, brothers. The first topic I'd like for us to touch on is what I consider probably the gravest issue facing the Black community at this time, and is Black on Black crime. And I actually, this whole discussion was sparked by flipping through the channels, and I see a conservative, Larry Elder, and I'm not a conservative, but it was hard for me to dispute some of the positions that he was taking in terms of the concerns that he was raising as it related to Black on Black crime, and more specifically, for me, it was as it relates to Black men. But I want to deal with the broader subject of Black on Black crime, and if we can start this segment off with John, I'd like to get your thoughts on this.
Well, thanks for having me. As you already know, I have a business background, so I see a lot of things through numbers that gives us insight as to root causes as well as potential solutions. So based upon what I believe what you're referring to with regard to Larry Elder, according to FBI statistics, over 50% of the homicides, national homicides, are committed by 13% of the population in terms of Blacks, right? But then when you break that 13% down, we know that there are more Black women than Black men. And I'm not saying that Black women don't commit homicides, but the major majority of them are Black men. So that 13% can be narrowed down to 6% of the population committing over 50% of the homicides. That is staggering. That shows that Black men need to step forward to nurture the younger Black men to make sure that we not only reduce the murder rate in our communities, but also the crime that's often related to that as well, and set them on the right path through education and other opportunities. So when we look at it in terms of the narrative, but also the statistics and the numbers, and break that down, there should be a national sense of urgency to address certain economic and social issues within our community. And if Black men stand up and move forward and work collectively, we can actually do this. But we have to understand the numbers, the issues, and the urgency.
Ron, let me get your thoughts on this.
Wow, where to start? Just have to understand that the what is actually what it is. Those numbers that you state, John, they're factual, right? But I'm more concerned with the whys. Why are Black men acting out in such a way? And not only do we just have to step up, but the rest of society has to acknowledge that this is an issue. We can say that's the problem in our communities all that we like, but if other communities are content to say, well, you know what, this is just how they are, We have to protect ourselves from them and not recognize everybody as being a part of the larger picture and a part of the society at large. Then, so what we need to do is that everyone recognize the importance of the Black man in our society, not have him continue to be marginalized, not have him continue to be emphasized. Like, we have to tell them how to behave and give them resources to find their own way, build their own resources, and create that communal sense that we really need, because right now, everyone is about individualism, right? When we came up, it was about a sense of community. We felt as Black men, our fathers taught us that, listen, this is something that we have to take care of, not just take care of my little piece of it. And if somebody infringes upon that, then, oh my gosh, I have to respond violently because I'm protecting mine. No, the community is ours. That's why I have a saying that I put across to people all the time when I hear them use the term hood. Remove that hood, reveal a community. There's great things out there to be had and seen.
Benny, let me get you to chime in on this, man.
As John so eloquently stated the facts, you cannot deny the facts that exist today. My vision on this comes from my upbringing. I went to Andrew Jackson High School, and Hosea, you'll be able to attest to this. Andrew Jackson High School is one of the most challenging high schools to go to from a young male standpoint. If you want to talk about crime.
Let me just pause. We got Andrew Jackson alum. Ron also went to.
Oh, so okay, Ron. So you understand? You
too, and I'm AJ 87.
Oh, you too, John. So
yeah,
okay. So all right, I didn't know that.
We can because we know we can.
All right.
Yeah, exactly. But
I did not know that. Wow. Okay.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that either. Okay. Okay, so all three of you, everybody on this panel understands exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, when I was at Andrew Jackson High School, you had robberies in the bathroom on the 3rd floor, you know, and the people that I knew that did it because they didn't view themselves as having a future. They didn't view that the world, their world was going to engulf them in a positive way as they move forward in life. And I believe that that's what's happening with these kids nowadays. They don't view the world in the same way that we view the world. We know that we have a positive future ahead of us. They don't see a positive future ahead of them for them. So we have to change that perspective in their eyes. How we do that, you know, I'm here to strategize, debate, and visualize how we would do that with the three of you and many more. But that's the key. They have to view the rest of their lives as having meaning and some perspective to get better. And most of these kids don't view that. Most of these kids think they're going to be dead in 3 years. So therefore, their view of human life is not the same. And like I said, and all three of us, if y'all went to Jackson, you went to school with guys like that. You know, you were friends with guys like that. So I'm quite sure you understand exactly how that mindset is. Absolutely. That has to change. And if we could change that on a grand scale, I think we can move our community better forward.
Benny, I think you're spot on. You know, I think that self-esteem, self-awareness, understanding who we are, what we could become. We had the biggest difference, and you touched on it, Ron. We had men in our lives that were able to reinforce values that our parents instilled, and these men and women, but we had people on the block looking out for us. We had coaches looking out for us. Black men and black women were way more engaged, way more concerned, way more having a sense of reality that in order for us to go forward, it's a collective effort. And it's not that sense of unity, that sense of it's us against the world. We don't have that anymore. It's been fragmented since the 80s. I would think, you know, we can talk about this, the politics of how things happened. But if you look at the fiscal crisis of '74, I think that's in New York City. I think that was the beginning of the change. You know, when we lost those after school centers, We lost a lot of the shop programs and a lot of the programs that never came back, and that allowed different communities. I mean, every school was open. Every school was open for after school center, not one Beacon school for, a population of like 200,000, 300,000. Each school had an after school program. In fact, Benny, your father ran one of those.
Yeah.
My father
Exactly.
created a Saturday program called the House Biddies. Again, that was men getting involved, being responsible, trying to get our young people engaged in something positive. Black men stepping up. We have to inspire more of that. Go ahead, Ron.
But you know something else? That's when we were also entrepreneurial in our neighborhoods. We were business owners in our neighborhoods. I mean, you look at these fields now, especially in Southeast Queens, they're barren. There's no little league, no Pee Wee football. I think we have 2 Pee Wee programs left for the football. And that's because now the merchants are from other communities. And frankly, they could care less about our children. As long as we go in their stores and spend our money, they're fine with that, but they're not fine with giving back. I mean, our last session of the local legislators, I was bugging a few of them to try to create some kind of business proposal or plan for local businesses that they will be kind of like obligated to put a certain percentage of their earnings back into the community. Even if it's only 1 or 2%, that can sponsor a baseball team, that can sponsor an academic competition. That was one of the ideas I had, an academic competition sponsored by the merchants where, at the end of the academic year, the student who meets the best criteria can come and they would have a display at the store and, people could come and meet them and, it could be an inspiration to other children. We don't see things like that in our community anymore. There's competition, but there's not that interaction. And I think what we need is that real live interaction where we can all see the best that we can bring out of each other. And that way we can start moving in the right direction.
Right.
Well, I agree on that in terms of the economics. I think we have to look at it from a foundation perspective, because there are multiple issues and multiple challenges that we need to address to make sure that we can move forward. One of the things that relates to what you just mentioned, Ron, is the financial and economic elements. And in order to get to that point, we have to change the culture in the Black community. Let me give you a couple of examples. I remember when I went to Dave & Buster's years ago, and there were 2 Jewish boys, and they had tons of tickets. You play games, you get tickets, and you can go and exchange them for prizes. Well, the younger brother said that, well, I have the majority of the tickets. If we combine our tickets, and we both want that same big prize. If we combine it, we can actually get the same big prize and share it, right? So why am I using that as an example? When you look at other ethnicities, the priorities in terms of education, and not just any type of education, lawyers, doctors, scientists, business ownership, things that actually create wealth, high-paying jobs and things of that nature, that actually helps to move a community forward. And that ties into the economics of the community, where we can open up businesses. And we have to get back to the point where Blacks support Black businesses. Like Malcolm X said, we've done so much for so long with so little. We are now qualified to do anything with nothing. But we have to change the culture and the mindset, right? Because if we're looking toward society to come in to help and change it for us, it'll be another 100 years and we'll be on Zoom or whatever it is at that time talking about the same issue. So we need to do it on our own by first changing the culture. We need to be talking about investment. In fact, as an example, blockchain and cryptocurrency. We shouldn't wait until it's 100% mainstream to adopt it. It won't be too late. So we'll be further behind the 8 ball, so to speak. So we have to catch up quick by changing the culture. What we go to school for, right? And I'm not knocking anyone. I'm just using this as an example. If you walk down any Black neighborhood and just ask those who are actually going to college or plan to go to college, they'll be spending $100,000 plus for an education to get a $40,000 to $50,000 job. So we have to change the discussion, the economics, and all of these different things, right? From education, business, and so forth, to the point where when we start growing wealth, we don't have to only count on the ballot box. We can count on, you know what, we don't like that. We write checks because money talks too. And these other ethnic groups, when they don't like something, they have organizations, they have associations that they all pool money together and they write checks. So if other people are funding our organizations like the National Urban League and NAACP and other Black organizations, if they're writing the checks, the majority of the checks, they set the agenda. If we go back to the Civil Rights Movement, poor Black folks pulled a few dollars together and did great things. But the principle is we funded our own organization. We can't fund our organizations to the point where we need to if we're not creating wealth, learning and understanding the basics of investment, home ownership, as well as owning a business or the stock market. Then we're going to fall further behind and these social issues are going to become exponentially worse.
But that's where the term systemic racism comes from. When we started making those gains in all those areas through the civil rights area into the 70s, certain elements of the country went back and said, hey, wait a minute, they're moving too fast and they're rising too quickly. We have to stop this. Thus the election of Ronald Reagan and everything that snowballed since then in terms of the economic application of all the things that you're talking about. And we definitely do have those organizations who work to pool our resources and things like that. But even once we get the ability to write the check, someone has to have an open hand willing to take the check.
The thing is that a lot of Black Greeks, sororities and fraternities are in education, right? But we don't set the agenda. The thing is, when we look at education, how it's taught, and I know this because I bring my own experience into the classroom at NYU and online at Hampton. These children and these young adults are thirsty for real life information, right? But when you look at the education system, we're still teaching based upon an ancient model. We're not teaching finance. We're not teaching the essence of small business. We're not teaching strategy. We're not teaching the things that these students could use, right, when they get to higher learning or choose a non-traditional path, right, whether they want to open a business or something else. So again, it goes back to culture. And what are we doing? Why isn't financial literacy and education taught from kindergarten all the way up to the 12th grade? Other ethnicities, they're taught that at home and it's part of their curriculum. But when it comes to the public school education, there's like this one size fits all. And if we're talking about diversity and inclusion, we need to really change the education model to make it work for us. And if I could use myself as an example, you know, I'll confess, I only graduated with a C+ in Andrew Jackson, right? The only A's I received is anything that I could relate to business. Back then they taught accounting, business law, and other classes. I'm like, okay, I can relate that to business. Got all A's. Everything else, I was like, okay, they're not teaching me how to make money, right? But the point I'm making, I would have probably done much better in trigonometry and all those other elements if I could have actually, if the teacher could have related it to real life application.
Benny, I'm gonna give you 1 minute. We gotta wrap this segment up.
All right,
1 minute.
John, bingo. I never thought I'd agree with you on something, but goddamn, I agree with you on this. The thing is John hit it right on the money, and it goes back to what I said in my opening statement. People have to see their future, what's going to improve their future, and if they see something that they're interested in, then they see a future that involves the thing that they're interested in. And see, other ethnicities get that at the kitchen table, at home. The Jewish community, they get that at the kitchen table, at home. In the Chinese community, they get that at the kitchen table, at home. In American Caribbean communities, who do quite well, and are the same shade of color as us, yet they still do very well. but they get that at the kitchen table at home. I'll just tell you a story. I had a professor, Chinese professor, for professional trading one, and he traded the equity markets. But what this person did, he taught his son, his daughters, his wife, all of them how to trade, and they all together make tons of money in the market because he was able to teach his whole family how to trade. As a matter of fact, during the class one day, his son called him up and had a position going where the position yielded a lot of money during the course of that day, and he called his father up because he wanted to brag to his father about it. That's the type of things. I mean, it's a microorganism in one person's family, but it's an example of how
absolutely.
But having some sort of frame of thought of how you're going to do things and make your life better in the future because you have the skills to do it.
I just want to close by saying it definitely takes a village, because the family that you just referred to, Benny, we don't have those families in our community. So how do we get those messages out to the kids that need it most? I think
mentors.
Well, I think John kind of had an idea of how to do that if we kind of incorporate that within the system. But let's take this break and we'll be right back.
I already knew that I was going to go to college, from a young age. I definitely want to major in political science, become the mayor or something, make the situation better for other people. My name is Justin, and I am your dividend.
Welcome back to this episode of Ignite, Empower, Transform. We're gonna shift the energy into a different topic. We're gonna talk sports. I know I have three very much sports enthusiasts as a part of this program. And I know we have Knicks fans and Net fans here. How important, I'm asking this to all three of you, how important is it for New York City to have a basketball championship for the first time in over 50 years?
Since I'm a Net fan, I think I should go first. Since my team is the only one that stands a slings ball worth of a chance of winning the championship. Very important.
We yield.
Very, very important in terms of the morale of the city, especially coming off this 2 years of COVID hell. So I think it's very important.
Well, for the Nets franchise, it's important because they're still looking for legitimacy in the city. This is still a Knicks town by and large. And while we know we're a little ways away, it's very important that we do show the city that we are working towards building a championship caliber team. I don't think that either one of the residents are going to win one this year, unfortunately. But I think it's important that the city know that, this is something that we're working toward. And, it's something else that can bring the city together. So for me, it's very important being a lifelong Knicks fan to see it again.
I think it's very important to not just win a championship, but I think our political leaders, our business leaders, and so forth can use the energy around a New York rival in terms of the Nets and Knicks. And every time there's a Nets and Knicks game, right, whether it's at the Garden or that small arena in Brooklyn, downtown Brooklyn, we should be pumping that up using sports that brings people together, right, that gives people a sense of hope and normalcy. We can use the rivalry, right, from this year or the remainder of this season going forward, right? And then at some point, as each roster improves, hopefully, one of us wins a championship. Hopefully, it'll bring the championship for New Yorkers to the Mecca of basketball, which is Madison Square Garden.
So let me ask you this. We all grew up in the 70s. John, you're a little younger than Benny and Ron and myself. We grew up at a time when we remember championships in New York City. We remember the Knicks winning championships. We remember the Nets winning championships. And growing up in Queens, I was both a Knick and a Nets fan. In fact, some of you know that my father's childhood buddy was Dick Barnett, and so as a kid, I was actually in the Knicks locker room when they were winning championships. So, but I was always a Nets fan as well because back then they were in two different leagues, and you didn't have to root against the Knicks or root against the Nets. You could root 100% with the Knicks and 100% with the Nets. But when they merged, then some people had to make a decision. I continue. I'm a Knicks fan first, always, but I've always rooted for the Nets. Can you be both in New York City? Can you be a Knicks
No.
and a Net fan? No, Benny. Why is that?
No.
Why is that?
Like being a Yankee and a Met fan. It's blasphemy. In life, you got to choose. You got to choose. One or the other. But, that's my opinion.
Well, look, this is my take, right? I was born in 1969, and my father, he loved the Knicks. My brothers loved the Knicks. I have three older brothers. So in 1969, as you know, the Knicks, the Jets, and the Mets all won it. So those are my teams. And to Vinny's point, you kind of, if you're a Jets fan, you can't be walking around with a Giants hat or Giants, jersey, right? But I will say, to answer your question, I will say, if the Giants make it to the Super Bowl, I'm a diehard New Yorker. If the Bills make it to the Super Bowl, I'm a diehard New Yorker. Right. So I'm rolling with the hometown team.
Right. And that's how I was raised. You root for the hometown. Root for the hometown team. Exactly. Ron, you want to chime in on this?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm a hybrid Brooklyn and Queens guy. So I grew up a Mets fan, never a Yankees fan. But as John said, when the Yankees were doing their things in the late 70s with Louisiana Lightning and Reggie Jackson and those guys, I absolutely rooted for them. So, yeah, I root for the Nets, but I'm a Knicks fan through and through. The captain, that left-hand hook shot, that's what got me inspired to start learning how to play this game, man. I'll be a Knicks fan for life. Always love the Knicks. And you can definitely be a fan of one or the other and root for both, but your allegiance and your dedication can only be to one franchise. And for me, it's orange and blue all the way.
Okay, brothers, we're gonna have to wrap up. I'm glad we were able to close out this segment on a lighter note, and we're gonna open up our next episode with a topic that we were unable to touch on due to the fact we ran out of time. So thank you, brothers, and just hold tight, and we're gonna get our audience to tune into our next segment. Thank you for joining us for part 1 of this very dynamic conversation with these 3 brilliant men. Stay tuned for our next episode of Ignite, Empower, Transform. I was your host, Hosea James Givan II, and remember, if it's in your heart, do your part. Today's help equals tomorrow's hope. I love our youth. Power to the people.